Hello, everyone. Welcome by our amazing session today. And today I have an extraordinary woman sitting in front of us with me here today. And I feel it now in my body. Her name is Bhagyalakshmi. She's from India. And you will soon notice that this beautiful lady has so much wisdom to share with us today. But it's also her presence that astonishes me. This is my first connection on live with Bhagyalakshmi in this way. And I can just tell you what's happening in my body. My body's excited. I get all these shivers in my body. And that tells me something beautiful is about to unfold here today. So thank you, Bhagyalakshmi, for joining us. And I'm so excited, I don't even know where to start. so first of all, I want you to tell us what your names mean.
Yeah, my name is Bhagyalakshmi. Bhagya means destiny, and Lakshmi is supposed to be the goddess of all-round abundance. And I was born on the day that they worshipped this goddess. That was some 63 years ago. So my father said a lot changed for him after I was born. So they called me Bhagyalakshmi. And sometimes my name is a little too long and I'm very short. So some people call me Bhagya, just Bhagya. That's fine with me too, with whatever it is that is comfortable. Yeah.
That's most beautiful, destiny. And I think destiny is one of the things that so many humans are so afraid of because they don't understand it. And they think they're at the end of something that they have no control over. And we're beginning to understand that we can have a deep relationship with this. It's not a concept, it's a living organism called destiny, and you are presencing it. So thank you for that. And the abundance part, the Lakshmi part, is just beautiful too. It's no wonder your dad's life changed afterwards. What was your childhood like?
I was the fifth of, the youngest in the family of 6 children. My younger brother passed away when he was about 6 years old. So I became the youngest in the family. So my other siblings were sent to public schools and, I was at home and alone. So I think I started reading when I was very young, and books have always been my best friends, my companions, and, my teachers and mentors. And so I would read biographies and stories of men and women who have done great things and wondered, like, wow, it's possible for one person to make a difference. And what can I be that might someday make a difference to people? And I have lived my life from what else is possible. So I did my post-graduation in literature, and I was a lecturer for about 2 decades. But my way of facilitating was, I guess, very different. So I was never I'm the teacher, you're the student. I think we're all students of life. And just because I have chosen to come into the world some decades before somebody else does not in any way make me greater or superior. So I remember one time when in the quadrangle, my students were all so tall, I would be somewhere near their solar plexus, even with heels at that time. So they were all around me asking about some questions because the exams were coming near, and suddenly there were whistles and all that. The securities rushed. They thought there was some problem there, and they couldn't see me in the middle of it. So I was just talking with my students at the time. So there was always a kind of a communion with people, whether it was somebody who was in my class. So in those days, there was no mic, nothing to talk, and there were like 150 students in the class, and you had to really speak very loudly. And sometimes you would choke and cough, and they would have those peppermints and halls, so things to give me when, So in spite of the fact that I was very young, I was able to connect with them. And my greatest privilege was my opportunity to connect with people. It is interesting, really, how when we don't have any definitions about who we are, then you become a part of any group where you are. So I often say, like, well, chronologically I'm 60 plus, but mostly 6. Sometimes mostly 6, because the curiosity is there, the willingness to explore possibilities is there. Yes. So
yeah, you're speaking to a 16-year-old.
okay.
Yes, for me as well. I love so much of what you all shared now. There's so much wisdom in all of it that I can vouch for personally as well, from my own experience, not out of books, but from my own experience. And yes, that thing of you chronologically a certain age, but how do you feel at heart now? Where do you act from? From what age are you acting from? And my children always said 16 till she dies. Like the 16-year-olds always say. And the little one too. And I think that's the part of me that has the ability to create, to express my creativity and my curiosity and the wonder of life.
Yes.
So that the adult part does not get overwhelmed by all that's happening. But it's the little one saying, I love those words you used in the beginning. What else is possible?
Yes.
Because by asking those type of questions, we open up to so much more without getting stuck into something that we would label a problem, for example. Yes. It's not that we're saying there's not stuff happening in the world that's not so good, but it's how we look at it and how we respond to it. And what are we actually doing about it more than, and like you said, one person makes a difference, all those beautiful books you read of these interesting and amazing people. And I believe, in my experience as well, that we all came to Earth to contribute to the his story and her story of the world.
Yes.
Every single human being. History is not about a few great men or women. It's about all of us, 8 billion of us at this moment in time, that makes the impact on what's happening. But I love the way you spoke about and you shared about your experience as a teacher, a facilitator, and already by using the word facilitator, you are already, for me, talking to a very different audience by itself, because it's a facilitator. Is, like you said, somebody who does not think they're superior than the others.
True.
And I think that will take education in our modern world to a different level. When that love to be able to lead others and show the way and guide is more a guidance thing, and the facilitation thing, then I know more than you, for example, because I've been here longer and I studied a lot more books, for example, and wrote a lot more exams. That's precious. And I think for our little ones coming into the world now, that's one of the biggest gifts we can give them.
Yes.
Because with them, they brought so much wisdom themselves into this world, part of their story that they bring in. So I just love the way you speak about it. Now, your experience as a facilitator in an educational environment for so many decades, how did your peers, your colleagues, how did they respond to you? Because you spoke about something very precious here. You connected to the students.
Yes.
Where it's when it's one way, it's I'm speaking towards you. It's not necessarily any connection. I'm just telling you a bunch of stuff.
Yes.
In whatever way. And we're not saying it's bad, but it's just a different way. True. What you're speaking is, it takes us back to being human.
Yes.
The thing inside of ourselves that craves to be with others, that wants to connect deeply with them. And that's every single human being on this planet. And so how did your different way of facilitation impact your colleagues and your peers?
For one thing, I was the youngest in the Department of English. So they were indulgent seniors. The other thing that I think is very important is how we are in the world. I think each one of us is an invitation to the world as to how it should treat us. and it will treat us exactly the way we treat ourselves. So when you function from a space of no ego, no judgment, and you are open to connecting with people to the degree that they're willing to connect with you, there isn't a skirmish there, or there isn't a so-called, colleagues and competition. I have never believed in the word competition. I think it's ridiculous to use the word, because it's like saying the cow and the horse are both four-legged animals, so they should both run the same way. They will run their way, each one of them. So you cannot compare and compete. The only one person that I could ever compete with is myself. And each one of us can compete only with ourselves to the degree that we're willing to say that, well, how can I be greater today than I was yesterday? What choices can I make today that I didn't make yesterday, so that my today will be greater than yesterday? So the willingness to outcreate ourselves is the only place where we better ourselves and what we are willing to contribute to the world. But to say that, I am in competition with you is ridiculous to me, because I could never be you, no matter how hard I tried. Isn't it?
Exactly.
And there is really no need. So when communion, consideration, cooperation, commitment replace something like competition, confrontation, things will begin to change for all of us. And sometimes, people are waiting for the world to change. I wonder sometimes if each one of us on the planet chooses to change just one person, that is, ourselves, the world would automatically be a different place, wouldn't it?
Oh, yes. You make me think of Gandhi's word, be the change.
Yeah.
And yesterday it was most fascinating because I'm busy preparing a podcast about change.
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday I was just taking a walk up the street to the local ice cream parlor. And on my way there, there's literally 3 blocks from where I live here next to the river. In 3 blocks on a Sunday, which usually is unusual for this area, is very quiet on a Sunday. There's lots of people coming for lunch at one of the establishments, but it's a very quiet area, usually speaking. And on my way there, in 3 blocks, in a real suburban area where there's not lots of economical activity, 3 people walked in front of me, coming towards me, with T-shirts with the words "Be the change."
Wow.
It was incredible. 3 people in 3 blocks. And because it was so interesting what happened to me. I had to walk a little bit of a hill up to the main road. And as I was walking up there, the words "Be the change" of Gandhi came into my awareness. And suddenly it dawned on me, especially in connection, in the context that I'm going to share the podcast about change, is that look at the words itself. It says, be the change. The be is first. You, me, be. Being, the being first. Before even the doing part. It's just be ourselves. Like you say, I love it the way you shared about the conscious choices every single moment, every day. That I don't have to compete with anybody. My choices, it's another C word. All the words you're using were starting with a C. And in the alphabet, the C is the 3rd letter, ABC. And if we just look at that, you shared so beautifully about the choice, about the commitment, all those C words. And on the other side, the other C words, competition, conflict.
Confrontation.
Confrontation. And it's like you say, it's incredible how we compare things that has nothing to do with each other, with themselves. And then we go into a state where we don't, which immediately affects our self-confidence as well, which is another C word, the confidence part, is that when I compare myself with somebody else, I go out of this being part of me. I walk away from it. The moment I do that, the moment I say, because comparison is usually a thing of the mind. It's a mental concept. Because if I ask you now to show me what does comparison look like, what will you show me? And even if I say show it as an emotion, what will it look like as an emotion? It's a mental concept. And if we, the moment we have getting stuck to a mental concept and giving it power over ourselves, we go outside of this being part, be the change, be you fully. And for me, change is coming more into this beautiful self view of you. That we rising out of the wounded parts of ourselves and come to this glorious beings that we are. For me, that's change, not that I now have to become something else. Correct. The beingness is already here. And if you just look at those three words, be the change, the be is first. You didn't say go do the change or go do something. You just said be the change. And that's for me quite a big mind shift if we become to look at that. And I want to link it to what you shared about the conscious choices that we have every day. It's about me. It's not about others. It's about me that I must make a choice. And like you so beautifully said, you shared about your experience when you were one of the youngest in your teaching fraternity, is that they responded likewise to you what you were sending out.
Yes. So I have a very interesting thought about the English alphabet, and I say whoever came up with it must have been really, really wise, because A and then B comes first, and then D, and then H, in that order. And there are 26, of course, the letters of the alphabet, but we never really use them A, B, C, D like that, right? We pick and choose letters and we create words. But the way in which they come out, B and then D and then H, is to me very interesting, because I say you can have whatever you desire if you do what is required. But in order to do it, you have to first be it. You cannot have that which you will not be, right? So when we recognize the importance of the being part of us, then imagine if we were to all be the same on this planet. It would have been a very easy task for God, just make a mold and then put them in and take them out. They're all the same. But we were not created that way. Each one of us has a very distinct energy. And that is for a reason, right? So that we can come and contribute that very special, unique gift, the energy of which we are, each one of us. So when we try to be somebody else, we don't do a very good job of it, because we can't be somebody else, right? And it takes up a lot of our energy to constantly pretend to be who we are not. But if the same energy were to be utilized in exploring the greatness of who we are, each one of us, then the planet and the universe would be so amazing, so much more amazing. Because it's not that you just put some salt in the food and everything's fine. You put some other spices also. Just because salt is good for taste, you don't bung in a whole lot. So each thing has its place in how that particular food item turns out. In the same way, if each one of us were encouraged to be ourselves, instead of, look at someone, see how that person is or how she is or how they, instead of that, if we were allowed to explore the greatness of who we are, each one of us, then probably things would be so different on the planet. So even if there are children going to school and they wear uniforms, so that doesn't make them the same. I mean, yes, there is oneness, of course, but the individual differences are there. And I think it is important that those individual differences should be encouraged. instead of, shut up and listen and be like somebody else. No. So when we look at someone, and in India we do this, right? This is namaste, which actually means that I salute the divinity within you. So if each one of us were to look at the other person or something with the idea that I'm looking at a part of divinity, I think we would all treat each other with a lot more honor and respect. So somewhere now, when we forget that thing within us, because everything is outside, so we end up neglecting our bodies, our well-being, our interests, our passion, whatever it is, because to keep up with somebody else, I have to actually diminish who I am, right? So I think it is important for each one to be who we are instead of trying to be somebody else. Isn't it?
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I can just share something out of my own experience relating to that too.
Yes.
Whenever I start some kind of facilitation session, no matter the context, silently, I do this within myself, is I say, I see and appreciate and know the beauty, the light, and the love within you.
Yes.
And doing that changes the whole experience for everyone, not only for me, for everyone. The way people then commune when they do things together in a group changes completely.
Very true.
It's because I recognize their being in that way. And on a subconscious and on an energetic level, they receive it, they hear it,
Yes.
and they respond differently. And that's when you said earlier as well, the way you so beautifully, how the world responded to you in a scenario at the time when facilitation was not even a word, really a word yet. But you were doing it. It was most beautiful. And for us, that understanding, if we get the understanding that on all the levels, body, mind, spirit, heart, all the levels, so every level, that the world is not against us. Human beings are not against us. The moment we start to focus on what's happening here, the world responds differently to us. But if I saw the world as a very dangerous place, so I don't want to come to India because it's a dangerous place, or some place in the middle of Africa where I've been all by myself many times, nothing happened to me as a woman alone. I'm a physical example of that. But if I didn't believe that it would be dangerous for me to travel into the middle of Africa all alone by myself, other people were horrified at the time, for example. But I was never afraid because in my world, there was no such thing. There's just this benevolent world. And the world then responded back to me in the same way. I was safe, so there was not anything about insecurities or uncertainties, or I have to go and live in fear while I walk in the streets all by myself. It's what we send out. It's an energetic response we send out to the world. So it's like, animals and nature is amazing. If you look at, you mentioned the horse earlier, if you look at dogs, do the same. If you approach them out of fear, they react to you.
Yes.
Because they smell your fear. And then they react to it. And us humans are exactly the same. We've just forgotten to really connect to our own senses, inner and outer.
Yes.
But it's on a subconscious level, we become aware of it, whether we're conscious of it or not.
Yes.
Which leads me now to something else I want to explore with you. And I love the words you explored, how you used the words explored earlier. Like with children, explore their greatness. Give them the space to explore their greatness.
Yes.
When we speak to a lot of people in this world currently, they're still afraid of the word consciousness. How would you describe, without giving it any definition necessarily, but the experience of consciousness?
Yes. To me, it just means to be totally present in the moment wherever you are. So So the willingness to be present, not partially, not half present, but fully present, engaged in the moment, is when we are being truly conscious. So the world has become so used to being on autopilot, so used to multitasking, that now when people talk of consciousness, they think it has something to do with spirituality. So I remember some time ago, I was working with someone, an elderly person, and I was teaching him to take care of himself by doing some healing method, which he could do on his own. I always do that, help them do something on their own so they can take care of themselves. They don't need to depend on anybody, including me. So he said at the end of it, he said, let me see if I have understood what you're saying. So I need to do this. And when I'm doing this, I need to breathe. I said, no, you need to breathe all the time. But when you're doing this process, you be very aware of your breath. So when we talk about consciousness, they misidentify it for something that it is actually not, that it has something to do with spirituality and religion and things like that. And the important thing is, it means to be present and engaged in whatever it is that you're being or doing in the moment without being distracted by something else. So very often, people will think something and then they will say something else and then they will feel something else. So it's like 3 different things happening at the same time. And if people are listening very intently, they will know, oh, doesn't seem very authentic, just verbalizing. So when we are present in the moment, truly present, in the body, in the mind, in the spirit, then we are being conscious. Does that answer you?
It does. It shares. Yeah. You share in such a beautiful, simplistic way.
Yes, yes.
And I agree with you. People get sort of all afraid and scared of something they don't understand yet. Yes. And for me to understand something is not, I tell you about something. That's not correct. Understanding. For you to comprehend it, you have to experience it yourself.
Yes.
So when you say being present in the moment and not, there was our bird out here. So if my attention was going out to the bird outside, I could not be really hear what you were saying. I would hear it through my ears, but it wouldn't settle down into my body.
Yes.
But when you're present with somebody, it's like you say, the thoughts, the emotions, the words, everything is aligned. And yes. The presence. And what presence do as well, from a conscious point of view, it makes us available to what's really being said.
Correct.
Otherwise, we only listen and hear a little bit.
Yes.
And then for the understanding part is we have to go through it ourselves as well. So if you were telling me about something new today, I become aware of it. So I'm present to it. Yes. So I allow it to come to me. Yes. Now my body, my whole being must integrate it, must internalize that can have meaning for me. Otherwise, it's just another concept that came on my path. It will not have any meaning. But the thing that presence does to us is where we begin to live more present in the present moment. Yes. And being conscious of what's really happening around ourselves. Yes. And take it in and internalize it. And for ourselves, the discernment to understand what of that is relevant to me in this moment and what not. That I don't have to bring that into my experience. But it's again that choice. It goes back to choice again. It's my choice in that moment, what I'm going to do with it. But for that to be really truly authentic, otherwise I'll just mimic other people, like you said earlier. I'll be an imitation of somebody else and their words, what they bring in. So when we see, especially on social media these days, we see something. I can read it, but I won't remember it 5 minutes later if I just read without awareness. and without being present. So if I was thinking about, oh, this afternoon I have to go and see so-and-so, and then I read something on social media, my attention is split up. I'm in two minds at the same time. So what am I going to give my true attention to? What will have true meaning for? This thing that I must do later? So I'm putting my attention into something into the future or to the past for that matter, that I cannot truly be present to the words that I'm reading or when I'm listening to somebody to truly hear what they're saying and it's meaning for me in this moment.
Yes.
Because I also believe that in my experience that you're here with me today, that I must hear about something and vice versa. And that's with every single being we encounter, everything we read somewhere, because our attention is on it. And then we must go into that discernment process of, okay, what can I now do with this? And then the being part goes into the doing. And doing doesn't necessarily mean activity. It might simply mean I'm sitting with this and allowing it to be with me. But we've never learned to be just with something.
Because we were trained to be a different way. We were trained to judge ourselves endlessly, because how would we improve ourselves if we didn't judge ourselves? So criticizing ourselves so that we could get better, and judging other people because we were like envious of them. This is a way of life in this reality. Because when someone feels threatened by someone else, they go into judgment and criticism of them just to belittle somebody else, thinking that that might in some way uplift them. It doesn't do that. It never does. And when we talk of being present, people think we're talking of meditation, you know. But what is meditation? And how does it help? When you are functioning from a place where you are totally aware and present and being still. And even the Bible, it says, be still and know your God. So the willingness to be that energy is not encouraged here. It's like, think about the future and, remember the mistakes of the past so that you don't repeat them. But I always believe that remembering is recreating. You keep remembering something and then you keep recreating the same pattern, same kind of thing. So when we are being present, like so many times when people come to me for counseling and healing, and they're scattered and all over the place, it is because they're not being present, which is why, halfway to the office, they wonder if they've locked the house, because when they were locking the house, they were thinking about something else. It's usually like when you're in the office, you worry about home. And when you're at home, you worry about the office. So you're never really where you are. Most people are not. So that is what creates unnecessary stress. Because in this moment, I can't do anything about tomorrow. And I can't do anything about yesterday either. In this moment, this is the only moment in which I can actually do something that can possibly be a catalyst for change in the future. So the willingness to be present and conscious instead of doing things mechanically or doing things with, it's not that we cannot multitask. We have the ability to do that, but the willingness to be so fully present with who you are and where you are, with whom you are, allows you to engage with them in a very different way. It's like, sometimes when you're saying something, if I were to, okay, I'm going to respond like this to that. So I'm not even actually listening. So there's a difference between hearing and listening. So listening allows you to get not only the words and the meaning, but the energy of the communication in a way that you really get it. But the fact is that most times people are not present. They're anywhere other than where they are. So they say it is so difficult. How can you be present like this? It's so difficult. I say, actually, not being present is difficult. So how do you be present? I say, you look at a loaf of bread. Okay. I mean, bread, it's a big loaf, but even if you take half a loaf and try to put it in your mouth, you're going to gag on it, right? You cannot spit it out, you cannot swallow it. But bread was never meant to be eaten like that. It was meant to be taken one small piece at a time. And when you take that one small piece at a time, ultimately 2 slices, 3, or whatever else you need goes in. One morsel at a time. Life was also meant to be taken one moment at a time. So it is not that we don't know how to do it, it's just a choice to either be present or not. And sometimes not being present, one ends up paying a big price for that because you miss out on so many things. So many things. So it disconnects people from who they are and from their environment. Animals are so present. Everything in nature is so present. We have disconnected ourselves from that moment of being in the present moment because we have so many things to worry about. But I often wonder, does worrying about something actually solve anything? It doesn't. But if we are present and here and make very conscious choices in the moment, then we'll not have something to worry about later. So when we are present and we have no judgment either of ourselves or somebody else, then what unfolds is very different. What unfolds is very different from when we are not present and in, the hustle and bustle of daily existence. It just is like, I don't know where the day went. Yeah, because you were not present with the day in a way you could have, right? So they said, no, but how can you be like that? We have to compete and we have to chase our dreams. And I said, I've lived a very long time and I have never seen whatever is being chased coming towards the one who is chasing it.
Exactly. I've actually written about that a few years ago.
Yeah.
How do you chase your dream?
Yeah. Whatever is being chased is usually running away in the opposite direction.
It's like a horse running away. Yes.
Yeah, true. But I said, I also tell them, I've lived a long time and I have never seen a rose bloom and jump off the plant and run after bees and butterflies. I've not seen it. I wonder if you have. They say, no, I've also not seen it. Because it just blooms. And there it is, in all its freshness, its beauty, its color, its fragrance. And it is an invitation to all kinds of insects to come to it. And when they do, there is a simultaneity of gifting and receiving that happens. The insects benefit, and so does the plant. So what would it be like to be an invitation for something to come to us? Not that you can just sit and not do anything, but the action steps are after the being step, right? So just being that energy that magnetically attracts to you that which you dream of, gives you ideas and creative possibilities which you explore, and then your dreams do materialize. They do actualize in your reality without struggle. Like Stuart Wilde said, life was never really meant to be a struggle, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it was never meant to be a struggle.
We made it a struggle.
Yeah, we made it that way.
In this moment, in my whole body, especially when you were speaking the last few moments, my body responds. I'm very sensory. And my legs. And when I feel something in my legs and my knees and my ankles and my feet, It's a deep grounding energy
Mm.
of stability, of balance, and of grounding. I'm connected to the earth. I'm not flying off somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you were speaking, and I was sensing and listening to what you were saying without evaluation, but to understand, I felt it in my solar plexus as well. So it's extremely powerful what you just shared about, for me personally. And when you were speaking about the listening part, being present to someone, for me that difference is between the evaluation part and then which is linked to competition and judgment, versus the understanding part. What is she really saying? What can I receive from that? Not you take, but receive. It's a gift. It's a gift.
It is about
We're exchanging gifts when we commune with each other. It's a conscious flow that happens spontaneously between us and others and the world, every human and every being around us. And that part that you shared about the beauty of the rose, it's ludicrous to think that the rose would run after the bee anyway. It doesn't happen in nature. So we cannot change our dreams. We will never find them because they will always be ahead of ourselves. We must allow them to come to us, like you said so beautifully with the rose, and the bees and all the other insects come. And it's a symbiotic relationship. It's a win-win for both. But in a world of competition, that being part is not there. So how is it possible for us to inspire ourselves and those around ourselves to come more into this beingness, into this present moment, to really understand what's being shared with us instead of evaluating it? Because when I evaluate something, it's a competitive situation, whether I don't think about it as that or not, because I'm comparing one thing to another. And then one thing must be either good and the other one bad. So it's these opposites. There's nothing in between. It's like it's also ludicrous. If you just think of the Earth and its axis, the North and the South Pole from a physicality point of view, we see the North and the South Pole as complete opposites. But look what's in between. It's us. Wherever we walk on this beautiful planet. So how can we even think of living in a world of opposites? Because our own home where we walk on the beautiful earth, yes, have to do it, has many different sides, but we're not falling off, number one, because of gravity, but this force, this magnetic force that pulls it together. So it's impossible to have these opposites if you look in the real physicality, and yet we experience it so. But I want to bring it back to what you shared about presence, being present in the moment, and truly being with somebody else, that something else can happen. Because for me, that something else is not something I dreamt up or you dreamt up. So it's not a preconceived idea, but it's because we're together, there's a third energy going on here. And if we allow that to emerge by itself, it's spontaneously, it's just most beautiful. And we will most probably experience it very different. You will experience it different from me because we're just such unique beings. But it's that third energy. If we really start to just think about it, not even feel into it, it's incredible because it's bigger than the sums of us two together. It's something extraordinary. And that's also consciousness.
Yes.
It's expression of consciousness.
So there is oneness there. There is no separation there. And so when we realize that we may be individuals, but somewhere we are all connected. And to the extent that I'm working from a sense of separation, the only one that I will end up harming is myself. Because in the spirit of oneness and consciousness, a lot more can be created than you versus me or one person against another. So when you asked a beautiful question, how one be present? And how does one do it? Everybody talks about, be present, be in the now. But how do we do that? The how of it is rarely, seldom explained. But when we recognize that this moment is the only moment that I have right now, and I could add it to the many that passed where I was not present, and see what it created, my not being present, what has it created for me? And if I choose to be present and alive, not merely existing, breathing in, breathing out. So how much more is possible? Now, I do get why people are not present. It's the bane of the modern times, why people are not present. They're multitasking, which they think is a way of life, or they are stressed out about things. They cannot calm themselves down enough to be present because they have hundreds of things they need to take care of. And that brings us down to the stress element that is there in our lives. And merely just seeing somebody running around can stress somebody. We don't have to do everything ourselves. There is enough stress all around. But we can either get connected to that energy or rise above it. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, if I'm in the basement of a building and the basement gets flooded, I'm going to get wet, very wet. But if I'm on the first, second, third, fourth floor or higher, the basement can get flooded, but I'm not going to get wet, right? So who I'm choosing to be, what frequency I'm resonating at, what is my vibrational resonance in this moment matters, because it connects me to similar energies. For example, if I were to be angry about something, I don't know how to be angry. Most people wonder how. I really have to try very hard to be angry, then they know it's a pretense. But if I'm angry, I'm going to get others who are angry with me also. And I'm going to get connected to every other angry person on the planet. And that's a lot of anger energy. So in every moment, we have a choice, either to connect with energies that are conducive to our well-being and our happiness, our abundance and prosperity, or connect with energies that are the opposite. And it's a choice each one of us has. In every moment, we have a choice. So why are people not able to be present? Because they're worried. If they don't do this, then somebody is going to get promotion, they're not going to get it, or this is going to happen, or they're going to. So the fear is what keeps working in the background all the time to keep them in a level of stress that does not even allow them to be present. So it is easy to say, don't be stressed. Easier said than done, will most people say. But it will take about less than a minute, no matter where somebody is, at work, at home, at the bus stop, at the train station, wherever, to just get the focus back to one's breath. Even if it is just 2 or 3 very conscious breaths, focusing on my breath, I'm being present. And so for those who are beginning to learn how to be present, if they're doing something and they were to just ask themselves, like, am I being truly present in this moment? Yes, that's wonderful. No? Okay, I get back to being present. So initially, one has to try to do it consciously. After that, it becomes a way of life. So when we realize that that by being present, there is a whole lot more to achieve and enjoy than not being present. Then we would all choose to be present, right? That is actually something that our ancestors knew. They didn't have distractions like we do in the modern world, right? So they were one with nature. They were a part of nature. We have distanced ourselves from nature. We are apart from it, which is why this disconnect doesn't serve anybody. So when people say, go and walk in a park or go somewhere where there are trees and all, and be in that energy for some time, like you spoke about grounding, we are walking on the earth, thumping along without realizing that it's a living planet, right? And when we connect with it and our feet touch the ground, we connect with the healing energies of the planet. And then again, we get to being present. So the willingness to explore that as, okay, so I'm going to be present in this moment. And even as I say it, this moment is gone and the next one has come. So it's not really difficult, but it's a choice. And it's a habit, right? We've been trained not to be present. So it's a habit. So it will go bit by bit. And then we get back to a way of functioning in this reality that might seem strange and different, but it is a very different way of living. And I think to some extent, it helps to make that very difficult, hazardous journey of those 14 inches from the brain to the heart. Because when we are functioning from the heart, we choose to function very differently. When it's from the mind, from the brain, that's a very different ballgame altogether. So when we are functioning from the heart, which is like thousands and thousands of times more powerful than the brain, we engage with others with that spirit of oneness and caring and sharing and love. So those competition, conflict, and confrontation, all those, they cannot exist. They cannot exist in that energy. So I think we all need to get back to our hearts. We've overworked the brain, the mind endlessly. Now it's time to move into the heart space. And from there, we live, not just breathe, we live in a way that connects each one of us, and one benefits and everybody benefits. And that again is a conscious way of being on this planet, right?
I love what you're saying. Yes. It's when we take that moment to take that breath, to become just more conscious of our own body, and coming back to ourselves. Another way of doing it is to rub your hands together. You feel the warmth between your hands, which is created by yourself. It brings you immediately back to yourself, your awareness. So if you feel scattered or confused or worried or stressed, it's one way to come back to your body. And now people ask me often, how do I get into my heart? I don't know how to connect with my heart. And you simply take your attention there. From there, you put your hands on your heart and you start breathing into your heart. So your intention is to breathe into your heart itself. Slowly become aware of your heart. Because your attention goes to your heart by having that intention to breathe consciously into your heart. And that link between your mind and your heart gets created on a very physical level, a real level. And it brings you in here. And it does something else too. It gives you so much more energy. So if you were tired, it's a very simple way to also revitalize yourself. You take a few slow deep breaths into your heart center. Or into your body. No matter where, but in your heart it's more explosive. It's like the energy starts flowing from you outwards. And it revitalizes you. And the funny part is you spoke about multitasking earlier and being distracted. And many times when I ask people to close their eyes during some kind of experience, especially in a big group, I explained to them that I'm asking you to do this for many reasons, but I'll share a few of them with you. When we close our eyes, nothing can now distract me from outside, because my eyes are the gateway that's connected to all my other senses to respond to things outside of me. And I'm closing one down because it's very difficult with our ears to close our ears down. We have to do something like that to close our ears. But with our eyes, it's very simple. We close our eyes. Now, the other thing, that beauty that happens when we close our eyes, there's a link between our left brain and our right brain hemispheres. The moment I close my eyes, I also slow down my own nervous system in my body. So the anxiety that was in my body because of a stressful or confusing situation gets diminished. Because my nervous system calms down, it's more relaxed. And then these hemispheres in my brain, there's a little bridge between them, which now information can pass from each other side, and that part can become active in my body. But what does that with us afterwards? After this moment of coming into the presence, I can now do 10,000 more things than I could have done when I was stressed out, confused, doubtful, or overwhelmed by what's happening. I've got so much energy, but it's focused energy. And it's heart energy pushing it, not mind energy. So it's not mental energy telling me, oh, you have to accomplish this and this and this today. And then more stress will come and the body will react to it. The body is our thermometer. But when I go into that space where I come into the present moment, I'm now consciously getting involved in actions. I'm not this robot. You used the word mechanical earlier. I'm not a robot. I'm not just doing things. Because the life force, my breath, is through my heart, instigating the mind and telling the rest of my body what to do.
Yes.
And that's really powerful, because like you said earlier as well, you shared that we impact everybody else around us in that way. It's again that signal that we send out. If I was going on like this, like you say, we tire people out. It's just too much energy.
Yes.
But if I have the ability to focus that energy inside of myself, and now from this heart space, sending it outwards in activity, in a more conscious way, that's conscious living. But it's also good for our own personal health on all levels.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned earlier something about healing. What healing arts are you involved in, or do you share with others?
I have been exploring alternative healing modalities for the past 25 years. Even while I was in the academic field, this was something that interested me tremendously. Me and my husband also. We did a lot of modalities because we were interested in knowing more about them. So it started with the Silva method of mind control, using both hemispheres in tandem and functioning better. And then Reiki, many levels of Reiki, and something called pranic healing, many levels of pranic healing, theta healing, emotional freedom techniques. And, there are a couple of other things that are distinct to India called Vipassana, which is, 10 days of silence and the art of living, breathing techniques and stuff like that. And then I went into doing life coach training. So I'm a certified life coach. And then there is access consciousness, of course, which is currently what I do. I'm very interested in the beauty of Jinshin Jitsu, which is a Japanese healing method. So it has been an amazing adventure. And every modality is a great tool. So ultimately, it depends on how one uses the tool and not on the tool itself. I mean, I can buy a hammer, but I can't expect it to jump up and knock a few nails in. I mean, I will have to use it to do that. So they all work in their own beautiful way. But with access consciousness, thanks to Gary Douglas and Dr. Dane here, it has become fun, simplified, and more fun. And so that stress of having to do something In some modalities, it's like you should do it this way. Okay, if you do it some other way, then something else will happen. There will be some abreaction or something like that. That used to put fear into the hearts of the practitioner, like, I don't want to harm anybody. I don't want, and then they would say, like, you have to go and have a saltwater bath, otherwise you'll take on whatever belongs to somebody else. So that has actually cleared with access consciousness, because in the spirit of oneness, if I'm cutting a cord from someone, whom am I cutting off connection with? Ultimately myself. So it has been a very grand and glorious adventure so far. And while I was in the academic field, I would always go and write a quote on the board, so children would get to read it as they pass by. And so that's what I have started doing from the beginning of this year. A quote that I love, I will put, and my own question follows that. So those children who are now adults, who were, with me when they were growing up, they'd say, when you used to write on the board, we used to copy it down, and we still go back to that whenever we need to. So it is like this. When you understand, you don't have to do something great all the time, but every little thing that is done with the willingness to be a contribution, not just an intention, but the desire to share and care, I think changes the world to some extent, So this is what I would, I started Access Consciousness in 2012. And within 11 months, I was in the certified facilitators class in Rome. And at that time, I didn't even have a passport. I didn't wish to travel anywhere. So from there, it has taken over. Like, I have more friends abroad than I have here. But it's interesting, really, because one of the reasons why I was able to feel like a duck taking to water with Access is because I always lived in the question myself. I can never remember a time in my life when I didn't ask what else is possible. So it felt like coming home to me. I was able to, wow, this is what I've been doing. I mean, I didn't give it a tag or a name, but that's what I do. And the willingness to be in the question instead of jumping to conclusions, I think would change a lot of things for all of us.
Our body responds to you. Also, I was also introduced to Access Consciousness in 2012.
Okay.
Oh, Bhagyalakshmi, you have shared so much wisdom with us. And it's, for me, not even so much about wisdom itself, it's where you are sharing it from.
Yes.
I could really feel the mole body, and mole body is really responding in tingles from the beginning till now in different ways, when you share different things from an energy level. There's so much wisdom what you shared. Can anyone who wants to explore more of your healing arts together with you, access consciousness, whatever it is, can they reach out to you?
Sure.
We will share your details. Yeah, we will share it after the podcast. We will share it after the podcast with everyone. And everyone, I just want to say to you, in this hour or so that we've been together here with this beautiful, amazing soul, I could not stop. I was sort of distracted, by the way, by your presence. The whole time, it was such a beautiful feeling to be with you on a very physical level, as well as a total human being level. And you brought a specific, beautiful gift into this whole podcast series, and I want to thank you for that. And everyone reach out to her. She's an amazing being. Just being with her, you don't even have to say a word, is going to change your life completely. I can tell you that now. I can feel it in my body. My life is not going to be the same after this. Our lives are never the same after we be with anyone. But in particular today, Bhagyalakshmi, we want to say thank you to the beautiful destiny and the abundance within you that you so graciously share with the world in so many different ways, and all the wisdom that you have with you. And it's embodied wisdom. For me, that's very different from just mental knowledge and mental wisdom. So thank you.
I have to thank you too. It has been an absolute privilege and an honor for me to spend time with you. And I didn't feel like I was seeing you for the first time at all. It felt like just picking up where I left off with a friend.
Thank you, same here. And my body again, my body celebrates. So everyone, please reach out to her. We live in this moment, and in this moment, we have so much to share with with each other. So it's like you said earlier, there's not a teacher and a student or a guru and a student. It's simply here to be, and from there we can most beautiful acts that we can send out into the world and do stuff that gives us joy and that makes us feel wonderful. So don't be shy to reach out to this beautiful woman. And we thank you so much, Bhagyalakshmi. Do you have one last message for, when I say last, I mean in terms of this moment, a last message for our ones who came more recently, the younger ones?
Is now the time to unwrap the gift that you are. Each one of us has come here as a gift, but so many times the gift is not even unwrapped. Is now the time to unwrap the gift of who you are. And my calls that I do on Zoom always end with one thing that if you would let me, I would like to share with you. I tell people after you leave the call, please go and find the nearest mirror. Stand in front of it and look into your eyes as if I'm looking at you. And I promise you, you will see a miracle. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm very grateful to you for giving me the opportunity to connect with people. Thank you so much.